The body camera footage is grainy, the audio a mess of struggling sounds and panicked breathing. A man is on the ground, pinned by officers, his face pressed into the pavement. He's crying out, not in defiance, but in sheer desperation. He's a father, just trying to get breakfast for his 4 children. And in the chaotic aftermath of his violent arrest, as he sits handcuffed in the back of a squad car, an officer's voice cuts through the tension with a stunning admission. It's an admission that should have changed everything, and yet, it changed nothing at all. He checks the man's information one last time, looks at his partner, and says the 6 words that expose the entire catastrophic error, F***K, we got the wrong guy. But for Silvester Hayes, the nightmare was just getting started. There's a moment in an encounter with the police when everything can change. A moment where the flashing lights, the stern commands, and the assumption of guilt collide with a reality so undeniable it leaves everyone involved breathless. It's the big reveal, that shocking twist we're used to seeing in movies. But in the real world, that moment doesn't just erase what came before it. The terror, the violence, and the humiliation aren't magically undone by a quiet apology or the unlocking of handcuffs. For some, this moment is just the beginning of a nightmare that goes on long after the police lights have faded. This is a story about what happens when the system designed to protect and serve gets it terribly wrong. It's a story about what it means to fit the description, and how that one vague phrase can lead to life-altering trauma. It's the story of a single father, a man with a clean record just trying to provide for his kids, whose life was shattered in minutes because of a mistake. A mistake that officers would later admit to, but only after the damage was already done. This is the story of Silvester Hayes, and it's a stark reminder that realizing someone is innocent doesn't always lead to justice. Section 1, The Ordinary Man. Before October 16, 2021, Silvester Hayes's life was defined by 2 things, responsibility and aspiration. At just 27, he was the single father of 4 young kids, a role he took on with incredible pride. His whole life revolved around their needs, and he scheduled his work to make sure he could be the constant, stable presence in their lives. He lived in the South Oak Cliff neighborhood of Dallas, Texas, and worked as a security guard, a job that suited his protective nature. In a bitter twist of irony, Hayes had once dreamed of wearing a different uniform. He had wanted to become a Dallas police officer, to be a force for good. When friends or neighbors would talk down on law enforcement, Hayes was often the one who would defend them. He believed in the system. He believed that if you did the right thing, the system would treat you right. His record was, as he put it, squeaky clean. He'd never been arrested, never been in trouble. His focus was simple: work hard, raise his kids, and build a future. That Saturday morning was no different. It started with a simple, loving act of a father. His kids wanted their favorite breakfast, French toast and bacon. So, Hayes got in his car to make the short drive to a local restaurant just a few blocks away. It was a routine errand on a routine day. There was nothing in his past, nothing in his present, to suggest that this short drive would detonate his entire life, cost him his career, and destroy his faith in the very institution he once hoped to join. He was just a dad, driving to get food for his kids. He had no idea that in the eyes of the law, he was already a suspect. He had no idea that his name, Silvester, spelled with an was dangerously close to another name on a police alert, Silvester, spelled with a Y. That one-letter difference would become the flimsy excuse for the chaos that was about to unfold. The man they were actually looking for was wanted on a violent family warrant. Silvester Hayes, the single father with a clean record, was about to be mistaken for a violent criminal, and he would be the one to pay the price. He was completely unaware that 2 Dallas police officers, Holly Harris and Walter Paul Guab, were already following him. The official reason for the stop was a minor traffic violation, a failure to signal. But what came next had nothing to do with traffic safety and everything to do with a rush to judgment. Section 2, The Confrontation. The second the police lights flashed in his rearview mirror, Silvester Hayes felt confused, not scared. He hadn't done anything wrong. He pulled over as instructed and waited. The initial interaction seemed tense but routine. Officers Holly Harris and Walter Paul Guab approached his vehicle. They asked for his license and registration. Hayes complied, handing over his driver's license. This was the first chance to clear up the confusion. His ID clearly stated his name was Silvester Hayes III. A quick check against the warrant for Silvester Hayes would have revealed the different spelling, not to mention likely a different age and other details. But that check didn't happen. Instead, according to the lawsuit Hayes later filed, the officers saw the name and the warrant alert for a similar one. The situation went from 0 to 100 almost instantly. Officer Guab opened the car door and ordered Hayes to get out, without explaining why he was being treated like a high-risk suspect. The tone was no longer routine, it was aggressive and accusatory. Hayes was bewildered. "I'm just going to go get something for my baby, something to eat," he can be heard saying on the body camera, his voice shaking with confusion. He was just trying to understand why a simple traffic stop was turning into this. The officer's commands got more forceful. They spotted a firearm in his vehicle. For Hayes, a licensed security guard, having a gun was part of his job. It was legally owned and registered to him. But for the officers, the gun seemed to confirm their suspicions. It became another piece of a puzzle they were putting together all wrong. They weren't seeing a law-abiding citizen, they were seeing the violent felon they thought they'd caught. The body camera footage shows just how terrifyingly fast things escalated. Hayes, still in his car, is trying to process the commands being screamed at him. An officer threatens to tase him. There's no explanation, no de-escalation. He's not told he's been mistaken for a wanted fugitive. He's only met with threats. His questions are ignored. His attempts to explain are dismissed. From his point of view, he's been pulled over for a turn signal and is now being threatened as if he were a hardened criminal. This is a wrongful arrest in motion. It's a cascade of confirmation bias, where every single thing the innocent person does is seen through a lens of guilt. Hayes' confusion was seen as noncompliance. His questions were seen as defiance. His fear was seen as resistance. The officers, so sure they had their man, skipped the simplest steps of verification. They didn't check the spelling. They didn't check the date of birth. They saw a black man with a similar name and a gun, and for them, that was case closed. The command to get out of the car was followed by immediate, physical force. Before Silvester Hayes could fully process the orders, officers were on him, dragging him from his car. The scene, captured on Bodycam, descends into a brutal, chaotic struggle. Hayes is pulled from the driver's seat and thrown to the ground. He screams, not in anger, but in pain and terror. "You are hurting me," he cries out. An officer's response is chillingly dismissive, "No, you are hurting yourself 'cause you're acting this way." Another is heard saying, "I know I'm pressing your pressure point because you're acting stupid." Hayes is on the ground, pinned by multiple officers. His lawsuit later alleged that he was kicked, punched, and tasered while pinned down, with officers putting their knees on his head, neck, and back. He's screaming for help, his cries echoing through the neighborhood. He would later say he wasn't fighting to escape, he was fighting for my life. He believed that if he didn't make noise, if no one saw what was happening, his life could have ended right there on the pavement. Throughout the ordeal, he keeps asking one simple question, why? Why is this happening? What did I do? The officers give him no answers. They're focused only on subduing a man they believe is a dangerous, resisting suspect. His pleas for understanding are just noise to them. After a grueling struggle, they get him into handcuffs. The lawsuit alleges he was hog-tied and then thrown into the back of the police cruiser. The physical assault left him with a dislocated shoulder and a torn rotator cuff. He sat in the back of that car, in immense pain, traumatized, and still with no idea why he had been so brutally arrested. He was distraught, yelling about his hungry kids, about the breakfast he now couldn't bring them. This is where the story takes another dark turn. Even if he turned out to be the wrong person for the warrant, the officers now had new potential charges to work with. An officer can even be heard on the body cam confirming that Hayes' legally owned gun came back clean and wasn't stolen. It didn't seem to matter. They appeared to be building a new narrative: he resisted, and he had a weapon. This would be their justification. The arrest became a self-fulfilling prophecy. They treated him like a dangerous criminal, and when he reacted with the fear and panic any innocent person would, they used that reaction to justify how they treated him. It was inside the police car, with Silvester Hayes handcuffed and in agony, that the truth finally started to surface. The adrenaline was wearing off, and the paperwork was about to begin. An officer takes another look at Hayes' driver's license. He runs the information again. He looks at the details of the warrant for the fugitive, Silvester Hayes. And then, it happens. The body camera is still rolling as one officer turns to another, the realization dawning on his face. The audio captures his profane, blunt admission of their catastrophic failure. F***K, he says. We got the wrong guy. In that one instant, the entire reason for the stop, the violence, the takedown, and the arrest is completely obliterated. It's a plain and simple fact. They had the wrong man. His name was Silvester, not Silvester. He was a completely different person. This is the speechless moment. You can see the officer's confidence drain away, replaced by the awkward, awful reality of what they'd just done. One officer explains the error to Hayes, and a sergeant on the scene reportedly walks up and apologizes for his team roughing him up. But that apology wasn't followed by his release. It wasn't followed by medical attention for the man whose shoulder they had just dislocated. Instead, a new, fateful decision was made. They had a man they had just violently arrested, a man who was injured, a man who was innocent of the crime they suspected him of. And letting him go right there would be a huge admission of a costly mistake. So, they didn't release him. The same sergeant who allegedly apologized for the rough-up then reportedly gave a new order: arrest Hayes anyway. The charges? Resisting arrest and unlawful possession of a weapon. This decision is a crucial part of the story. The charge of resisting arrest was for the struggle that happened while Hayes was being arrested for a crime he didn't commit. The weapons charge was for a gun he legally owned as a security guard. On the body camera, the officer's discussion seems to shift from correcting a mistake to justifying the arrest they'd already made. One officer is heard saying, "So we got him on that, right? So then we're good." The speechless moment of realization wasn't a moment of justice for Silvester Hayes. It was the moment his innocence became an inconvenience. They knew they had the wrong guy, and according to the lawsuit, they arrested him anyway. Section 5, The Aftermath. For Silvester Hayes, the nightmare was just getting started. He was booked into the Dallas County Jail, facing charges of resisting arrest and unlawful possession of a firearm. He spent several days locked up, a terrifying experience for a man who'd never been arrested and was worried sick about his 4 children. The consequences hit his life like a wrecking ball. While he was in jail, he couldn't work. He lost his job as a security guard, the career that required a clean record. That arrest now made him essentially unemployable in his own field. The loss of income was devastating. He lost his car. He soon lost his home and had to move. In just a few days, the life he had so carefully built was completely shattered. "I pretty much lost everything," he would later say. "From my car, a place to stay, everything." The physical toll was just as bad. He suffered a torn rotator cuff and a dislocated arm, injuries that required a long, painful recovery. But the psychological wounds ran even deeper. The man who once defended the police and dreamed of being one of them was now terrified of them. The trust he had placed in the system was gone, replaced by the memory of being pinned to the ground, fighting for his life. Finally, in December 2022, more than a year after his arrest, the charges against him were dismissed. It was a vindication, but a hollow one. It couldn't give him back his job, his home, or his peace of mind. In October 2023, Hayes filed a federal lawsuit against the city of Dallas and 10 police officers, alleging racial profiling, excessive force, and unlawful arrest. But in May 2025, his quest for justice hit a legal brick wall. U.S. District Judge Karen Gren-Scholar dismissed the lawsuit. The judge ruled the officers were protected by qualified immunity, a controversial legal doctrine that shields government officials from lawsuits unless they've violated a clearly established right. The court decided that the initial traffic stop was valid and that the force used was justified because Hayes resisted arrest. The ruling stated the force was neither clearly excessive nor clearly unreasonable. It was a crushing blow. For Hayes, the video showed him fighting for his life. For the court, it showed resistance that justified the officer's actions. The legal system had validated the very story that was seemingly created on the side of the road to cover up the initial mistake. Silvester Hayes, now working at a high school and hoping to coach football, has pledged to appeal. His fight continues as he tries to build his life back up from the rubble. Section 6, A Pattern of Injustice. What's truly disturbing is that Silvester Hayes' story isn't a one-off. It's a symptom of a much deeper problem. His story is a single, vivid example of wrongful detentions, racial profiling, and mistaken identities that disproportionately affect black men across the country. The key elements, a vague description, a rush to judgment, and a violent escalation, show up with chilling regularity. To see the pattern, we just have to look at another case, hundreds of miles away in a Chicago suburb. Here, another father found himself in a terrifyingly similar situation, his life on the line because he, too, fit the description. His name is Derrick House, and his story is an echo of the injustice faced by Silvester Hayes. In January 2024, Derrick House was driving home to his wife and kids after a trip to Costco. He was in Woodridge, Illinois, a quiet suburb where a violent police encounter seemed unthinkable. Suddenly, an unmarked squad car swerved in front of him, cutting him off. Before he could even process what was happening, his car was swarmed by police officers emerging from multiple vehicles, their guns drawn and pointed directly at his head. The air filled with terrifying and contradictory commands. "Hands up, right now," one officer screamed. "Put the FNG window down," yelled another. One threat, caught on Bodycam, was particularly chilling: "I'ma shoot you in your head if you come up with anything other than that." Terrified and confused, Derrick House was dragged from his car at gunpoint and handcuffed in front of his own neighbors. Like Hayes, his immediate plea was one of innocence. He told the officers, "I don't have any weapons, I just came from Costco, dude." The parallels are impossible to ignore. Two family men, going about their lives, are suddenly thrust into a life-or-death scenario by police acting on bad information. In both cases, the men were black. In both cases, the encounters were immediately violent. And in both cases, the police had the wrong person entirely. Section 7, Another Father, Another Nightmare. The mistake in Derrick House's case was, if anything, even more blatant than the one in Dallas. The Woodridge police were looking for suspects in a shooting. But the information they were acting on was a mess. They were looking for a black Volkswagen Tiguan with two people inside. Derrick House was driving a gray Volkswagen Atlas, and he was alone. Most importantly, the license plates did not match. The difference was so obvious it should have been caught long before any guns were drawn. Yet, in the heat of the moment, those crucial details were ignored. The officers saw a black man in a VW SUV and, fueled by the urgency of the chase, they acted with extreme prejudice. The bodycam footage reveals the horrifying reality: an innocent man, surrounded by police, guns to his head, being threatened with death, all because of what his lawyers call a combination of racial profiling and stunningly bad police work. Unlike in the Silvester Hayes case, the realization of the error in Woodridge came much faster. Within minutes of House being handcuffed, the officers knew they'd made a monumental blunder. The same officer who had been screaming commands checked the information and, much like the officer in Dallas, had his own moment of profane realization. His words, captured on his body camera, are a stark admission, "If ****** get up." In the end, the most chilling part of these stories isn't the initial mistake. It's the aftermath. It's the realization that the system can know it's wrong and still proceed to crush an innocent person's life. The damage to Silvester Hayes wasn't undone when the charges were dropped, nor was the terror inflicted on Derrick House erased by a quick apology. Their lives were permanently altered by moments of violent confusion, fueled by assumption and bias. These aren't just stories about bad days for good people. They are evidence of deep-seated problems that demand more than just apologies. They demand fundamental reform in training, policy, and most importantly, in accountability. Because until the moment an officer realizes they have the wrong person is the moment the harm stops, these speechless moments will continue to be followed by the deafening silence of justice denied.